This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 512, recorded on November 11th, 2021. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way in your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here. And this is the part where I would say to Mike in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. Mike is out tonight. Our guest host, Brian Flanigan-Arthurs, is with us tonight. Brian, welcome to Home Gadget Geeks. Great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. I'm glad to be here.
You're usually in the chat room, faithfully in the chat room. Brian F. If you've ever hung out in our chat room, we have to do the obligatory weather. Beautiful here. We had a bunch of wind. It's getting colder. You're in Phoenix. Does the weather ever change there? I mean, does it ever get cold, or is it just hot all the time?
I think we've got the best weather in the country right now. Actually, we're in the mid to high 80s, and our lows are in the mid to high 50s, low 60s, and it's just gorgeous right now. This is the time. This makes all that 110 degree temperatures worth it.
Yeah, I know you believe that, but I'm a cold weather guy. Today I was out doing a little yard work. I was in shorts. It was 47, and I was like, I love this. Like that for me. It's got to get about 40, maybe in the 30s before I stop kind of wearing shorts out there. But I was like, so I'm a cold weather guy. Apparently you're okay with the warm weather down there in Phoenix.
Yeah, I actually, it's not that I like the hot weather, but I'll take that over the cold.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hey, you've been there, you've lived there your whole life. So you like it. It works for some. I don't know why. I just could not and they always say it's a dry heat, right? But I just couldn't. It gets pretty muggy here in Nebraska in the summers, and just really hot and really humid, heat indexes of, 105, 110 with humidity. That's terrible. So I don't know why I'm saying anything about Phoenix, because it just doesn't last as long. We get a couple weeks of it and then it kind of goes away. But
yeah. And if you're indoors and you're, for work, it's not too bad. Yeah. The electricity bill isn't fun, but yeah, if you're indoors, just that short walk between the door and your car door, and then a few minutes cooling down your car. Yeah.
Everybody have white cars just for that reason, or it doesn't matter?
I would say there's probably a disproportionate amount of white cars in Phoenix. Yeah.
I'd imagine there's all kinds of trickery that goes in to keeping cars cool. Well, hang tight 1 second. Let me get a couple things out of the way. We'll get to know you a little bit. Happy Veterans Day here in the United States. We celebrate that on November 11th. And so big thanks to all those who served. And I would say all those who supported those who served. My wife wished me a happy Veterans Day today, and I said I just couldn't do this without you. So there's a lot that goes into that, but a happy Veterans Day to those, and thanks for your service if you've served in the military. And I'd even say around the world, if you've given time, if they've given a part of your life to defend whatever that you need to defend, happy Veterans Day from that standpoint. Big thanks to Gavin Campbell, who joined us last week. Gavin was great. Just had a good time with him. And so Gavin, thanks for coming on. He'll be back. We'll bring him back sometime after the first of the year. We got some things to talk about with him, but big thanks to Gavin for coming on as well. Brian, let's get to know you a little bit. Just give us a little bit. What do you do? What do you do for a living? What keeps you busy during the day? And then we'll talk a little bit about your tech hobbies.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I'm a school teacher by trade. I teach students and primarily economics and various other electives. I work at a school that's what they call an alternative charter school. We service students who are 16 years and older, who are they have to be behind in credits to come on board with us. And I'd say I love every day of my job. We've got a lot of good, motivated kids.
That's great to hear. As we were talking pre-show about it, I was like, I never thought about what happens to students who can't graduate in the traditional time frame and who are motivated to. Some aren't. Yeah. Sounds like your students kind of are motivated. Did COVID throw a wrench in your system? And in what ways did it affect it? And is it coming back?
Yeah, certainly. Just like everyone else, many schools that went home and worked remotely for a while. Where I work, we ended up probably even longer than most school districts around actually kept our kids at home longer. And we went from March of 20 all the way through mid-April of 21 working from home.
Hmm.
And then even at that point, staff came back, and then it was optional for kids whether they were going to come back or stay remote. And I would say at that point, for the remainder of last school year, there was probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of the kids who decided to stay remote. And this school year, we required it to be in person. There wasn't a home option unless it was for issues related to quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were quarantined, then of course they had the option to, or the requirement, I guess, to work at home in that way.
We had a group, I want to say last fall. So about maybe this time last year, we kind of convened to say how are we doing? What's it looking like? We're another year kind of away from that. School year has started. You're in. Anything for you or in the work that you're doing that came out of this time that you're going to keep, didn't exist before, but like you're like, oh, this is really good, I'm going to hold on to this? Anything like that where it just you kind of figured this thing out?
Yeah, certainly. One thing that's really helped, our school district invested in Microsoft Teams, and that was a product when we initially left spring break of the previous school year, the 1920 year, in March of 20. From there till May, we really didn't have a good real-time communication with our students. We would make phone calls, and then everything else was asynchronous. So going over like either traditional email, or we had a structured Canvas type program that the students would interact, asynchronously with us. But we didn't have that real-time communication on a regular basis. And once we started it the following, once the new school year began, the 2021 school year, we got Microsoft Teams pretty quickly on board. It was amazing because we had for adults, I would say folks in their 20s, 30s, 40s, they picked it up pretty relatively easily. Some people who weren't as tech savvy, it was a little harder, especially in a remote setting, to learn how to use a new platform. And then for our students, those kids, they can figure things out, and they figured out Microsoft Teams faster than the adults, I think. And so we had some good successes. But now you're asking, now that we're back, we kept Microsoft Teams. It's a great communication tool that we use between both staff and students. And even when you factor in the things like even when you're back in person, you're looking at ideas like social distancing and making sure that you're respecting that space with the students, even more so. And with Microsoft Teams, there are certain things that you can communicate a quick response to a student that's in your classroom versus having to go up next to them for a longer period of time. So it's just keeping everyone safer, and it's great. Yeah.
I think Teams, it's greatly improved. We had been a early adopter in late 18, early 2019 on the Teams, and everybody was kind of skeptical of it. And then of course, early 2000, this hits, we're forced onto it. I shouldn't say forced onto it. That sounds bad.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, we're going home, right? We're going to do this thing. And man, it wasn't ready. And it has grown up fast. And it's still, they all do. But certainly, do you have any, Teams is quite extensible where, a Zoom, you don't really think about doing development on top of Zoom, but Teams is kind of it's a platform. There's plugins for it and things you can do with it. Do you guys lock that down, or do you ever find the students use some of those features? But like most people just use it for video conferencing, but it's got to-do lists. It's got, other plugins you can put in. Do you have any problems with that?
No, our IT department locks things down pretty hard.
Okay.
We'll have, I think the funnest things the kids can do is throwing GIF files into the chat and things like that. But I work with the older kids. Our younger students, it may even be more locked down than that at the elementary school.
I remember when GIFs went live for us. It's all it was for like a week. Everybody just, you could. I was like, all right, guys, settle down. Like this has been around a while. Okay, this is not like this is a new thing. But it's been interesting in the enterprise space to see how that's become acceptable from
Yeah,
we run a pretty at Gallup, we are on the side of freedom as opposed to restrictions, right? And so we
right.
allow kind of people to make their own decisions, and it's gotten appropriate. I mean, I
Yeah,
think there's some moments where I'm having some communication, and somebody will just put a funny GIF in, and it's actually in some cases, it's a great way to communicate. Like it gets the point across. I know most of the time we use it, this is dumb or whatever, right?
yeah.
But I think there's actually times when it can communicate how somebody's really feeling, and you get more than just, OMG, right?
I agree. And when you think about, even especially when you're working from home during that time, being able to almost communicate that humanity over a platform was extremely important and
Yeah.
needed at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got some folks that I work with, and there's just appropriate times they pop it in. It just makes me laugh,
Mhm.
and it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually kind of more fun than being in person,
Yeah.
to do it this way. And so you're back full time, kids are back in, it's working. Does it feel like it's back to normal, or is it a new normal? Like, did it affect it in a way that it's just not ever going to be the same again for the way you guys did it before? Or how is that working from the way the classroom works?
Sure. It's definitely, we go in phases, and our phase is still backed up one or two phases
Mm,
before it's what quote unquote that new normal.
yeah.
Our where I work, it's they're being extremely cautious, which and keeping staff and students safe. But we have giant dividers everywhere in the classroom, big plexiglass dividers,
Wow.
and we drastically limit how many students are in a room at one time. Our we're all wearing masks while we're inside the classroom, and then outside, as long as you're more than 6 feet away from somebody,
Hmm.
you're allowed to take off your mask. And everyone's very respectful of that. Very,
Huh.
very rarely do I have to remind somebody, and it's just the policy. You
Yeah.
just have to
Yeah.
say, this is the policy,
Yeah.
and it's as short and long as that.
Seems like
Yeah,
that's working for some, right?
yeah, yeah. I think so. And if I let the students know if they need what they call a mask break, well, and again, I work with older kids.
Yeah.
I say, and our building faces the outdoors, and
Right.
so there's an outdoor connects to a bathroom that's outdoors. Well, use the bathroom, and
Yeah.
on your way to the bathroom, take off your mask.
Right.
That type of
Right.
thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Do you you mentioned you're using Teams. Does that automatically make you guys a Microsoft shop from a school perspective, or what kind of equipment, or how would you characterize some of the software and hardware you're using for the students?
sure. So with the school, they provide us Windows laptops,
Mm,
and the Windows laptops, Microsoft is the main deal that we have. Everything that we have, the Microsoft 365, or I guess you call Office 365, and so we're very heavy Microsoft. We don't use Google at all. Just their
hmm,
privacy policy that they have set
mhm,
up, and they just
mhm.
don't do it. And but yeah, so with
Good.
that, yeah, we use that. Now individual teachers will, as long as it's within the regulations and what's allowed, we'll use some of the software, especially if it's web based. If
Right.
we can bring on a website, that's completely okay. We just
Yeah.
can't install anything.
Right.
Yeah.
You're an Apple guy, right?
Mhm.
And how does that how do you it used to be that was those two worlds were far apart, and it seems like anymore, like I go back and forth. I don't even think about it anymore, but how does that work for you?
Pretty well actually. And
Yeah.
like you said, for the most part, it's once you call up the app of whatever you're using, the interface really disappears behind it.
Right.
It's a lot of
It really does.
the both app stores and platforms offer almost the exact same things. A little bit behind the scenes is a little different. But yeah, I work in both worlds, and all my personal stuff has pretty much transitioned over to Apple. Yeah.
Why Apple for
Well,
you? What is it about that it would be easier? Like, you're in a school that's Windows. Why Apple?
sure. So Apple for me started really young. When I was a kid, we got our Mac Classic, and I loved that Mac Classic, and I would use the heck out of that thing well over its lifespan of how long it should have lasted. And while everyone else was connecting to the internet in the mid '90s, we didn't have internet yet, and I was still using that Mac Classic and playing black and white games, and and having fun on that. And as I got older and I got a job working, retail and restaurants and stuff, and I would save up my money, and I bought myself a Mac desktop, and then a couple Mac laptops, and then, well, in 2006 that stopped. I think life got in the way, and they call that the quote unquote Apple tax, and it's a real thing, and that stopped me from Apple for a while. And I did dabble into. I got myself PCs, and I preferred to use the Apple, but it was expensive, especially as a college student in my first couple of years teaching. That just wasn't going to happen. So, but it was funny because slowly I started getting back into Apple, and I went back and forth between Android and iOS for my phone, and I ended up 2017. I got myself an iPhone SE, a refurb, the older one. And started using that. And what the funny thing was, you brought up, it'd be much easier if you stayed with one platform. And I agree. So I really did a very thorough job, I think, of trying to find basically applications that didn't really matter. They were agnostic to whatever I was using. So I would use like Pocket Cast instead of Apple Podcast, in order to be able to say, you know what, I may not have this forever. I'll go back to Android and I'll be okay because I'm using the other platform. And so I started doing that. And then I went ahead and I picked up a iPad in 2018. First iPad I ever owned. And then I started to see like, oh, wait, look at this. I can AirDrop. I can, using Safari, I can open the tabs on both the phone and the pad. And I was like, that's kind of cool. And then I started learning more about this Apple Watch thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So got that. And then by then, oh man, it was too late. And you're already using the phone, you're using the iPad, you're using the watch. And then when we were working from home, I started doing some adjunct work, and working from home, I started working adjunct, and I decided, because I was going to use my personal computer for that. And my personal computer, I'm like, I'm going to go out and buy a Mac. So I got myself a 27-inch iMac.
Nice.
Yeah. So now I'm in.
You've been in, it's what's interesting for me, similar story. I don't know if I've ever really even talked about this on Home Gadget Geeks. In 1982, I started writing, code. I developed software on an Apple IIe as a high schooler.
Oh, cool.
And we'd get together after school and write, it's basic, but we'd write programs, and we started writing games. And a buddy, we got so into it, a buddy of mine dropped out of school and started programming. As in Silicon Valley. He started programming, I think it was COBOL or something like that in those days, and Fortran, one of those. And I just wasn't that interested in dropping out of school to do software development. And we didn't get even really IBM computers at the school till probably my senior year. Some HP 8088s that we did a little bit of basic on and developed. And then I went in the military. When I came back, I just couldn't. I was like you. I just couldn't. I just couldn't afford to be in the Mac space for the most part. Windows, and even Windows computers were expensive.
Yep.
And really wasn't until probably 95 that I got even my first Windows computer. That I was in college. I was dirt poor. Like, I just, computers were a couple grand right at that point. Yeah. Like, we complain about a couple grand right now. This was a couple grand of $1995, right?
Right.
Which was super expensive. And I had somebody give me a Windows computer, and I pretty much stayed Windows at that point, from that point on. But I too am in this spot, and I even did a Palm Pre for a while. I tried to stay on the Windows Phone as a as a phone device. Of course, we know
Sure.
that didn't work out. Did Android for a while, and just was like, you know what, I need a phone that just works. And
Yep.
so I think I started at a 4, at
Yeah.
the 4 version. So today I'm talking to you on a Mac Mini, but flanking it is all Windows stuff, and in most of the infrastructure here, I just have one Mac. Everything else is Windows. But the goal when I got the Mac was to make it feel like I wasn't going on a Mac. Well, now I can thank Windows 11, because Windows 11 looks like Mac OS. Like,
It
it
does.
literally. Have you gotten a chance to mess with Windows 11 yet?
No, we're still using Windows 10 on our work computers, but yeah, I've looked a little bit on some videos. Yeah, just the stylistically, it does
Mhm.
look a lot more Mac-like.
It's almost exactly. They've centered the task manager down the bottom. It's got the bloom, which looks a lot like the Mac OS that I'm on right now, and I'm kind of like, oh, well, those look a lot alike. And so you have a hard time. I have a hard time telling them apart. I think you said this: the app infrastructure is what matters. What am I using out of the browser, or what am I using out of the apps? Now, that's not the same for everybody, and I get that, right?
Right.
But I think for the average guy, I think we're to that point. I could probably put my wife on a Mac, and she probably wouldn't know. It'd be
Yeah.
one of those kinds of things like, oh, that was, and there's some things, she might even say, I could probably put her on a Mac and say it's Windows 11, just to be,
Yeah.
one of those kinds of things. And there'd be a few questions, and then she'd figure it out, and we'd roll forward, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah, I just don't, we've been doing this a long time, and there used to be that big divide, and I just don't see it anymore for the most part. What are you carrying for a phone right now? What's your main driver on a phone?
Yeah. So I actually updated to, yes, the iPhone 13 mini.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So I
Yeah,
replaced the SE and got myself a 13 mini, and it's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a good. I didn't plan on this, but I upgraded my daughter to it, and we were just in a spot. She was on an 8, and I was holding out and holding out and holding out, and we just at this point, and then it just that phone just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I checked into it, and Sprint's like, well, T-Mobile now, like,
Mhm.
we'll give you a lot of money for that really crappy phone if you stay on T-Mobile. And I was like, okay. So,
Might as well. Yeah.
couple bucks a month, just, I think the whole thing's like $160 and they took her really bad iPhone 8. Yeah, why wouldn't we? So she's on a
Yeah.
13. I didn't even think about it. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I'm just on a 12,
And,
but she loves it.
and I remember, wasn't she dabbling into like a lot of photography?
She
Yeah.
was, and she is. Yeah.
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 So I mean, the
No,
13's
right
got a
on.
great
Yeah.
camera on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it'll be good for her going forward. Couple items I want to talk to you about tonight.
Mhm.
In one, I don't know if I've ever talked about on the show, but as an educator and in the work space you're doing, and I've been thinking about it. This isn't what it is, but like Grammarly, this is one of those applications that sneaks its way into your life, and then when it's gone, like, I just realized I was in a browser, and Grammarly had been disabled for some reason or whatever, and I was sending all kinds of really bad spelling errors. I don't know what happened. TextExpander, for
Mhm.
you've been dabbling in that, and that's one of those. I tried one time, but then it was like, oh, I gotta remember these codes to get. So talk a little bit about your use case. Why would you dabble in that, where it kind of completes things or fills things in for you? How are you using it?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I've been using for quite a few years. In Mac OS, they have a little replace text box. So let's say you're always misspelling something, you can set it up where every time you misspell it that way, it'll respell it a different way. And I was getting by with that for a long time. And so it was good. It was good stuff. But I kept hearing more and more about this program called TextExpander, and it's from a company called Smile. And they originally, I think, were just on the Mac. I mean, they've expanded. They're on. I have them on my phone, and they're also on, I believe, Windows. And there's actually an extension now in the for the Chromebook. You can do it on that as well. And essentially, in its most basic way, it replaces text. And so you set up an abbreviation, and it then replaces that abbreviation with whatever text you put in. So if you type in, your name or a particular greeting or something over and over again, you can set that up where it simply replaces that text with whatever it is you're typing. And you brought up the concern with having to remember some of the codes that you put in. It's got a really nice interface where you can actually look up what your codes are, and you can actually search. So if you remember a certain word that it's replacing or something of that nature, there's a search function. So you can search for a word and it'll tell you what the abbreviation is. And so that's really helpful in case you forget. But one thing I haven't dived into it too much, but I've been watching some videos on it. This is a pretty powerful aspect of it. I guess you can have a block of text, and let's say you tend to send, whether it's a client, whether it's a student, whether it is a block of text, that's, I would say 99% of the block is the same. But there's certain aspects, maybe it's a name, maybe it's you're doing well, not so well, you're ahead of pace, you're behind pace. There's little toggles of, minor changes you have to make to those paragraphs. They have little drop-down menus. So you put in the code, it fills in this block of text with these drop-down menus strategically placed where you put them, and you can just choose the options on those drop-down menus and then send your email or send whatever, post it, whatever it is that you're doing with that. And that's pretty powerful. I've only begun to dabble into it, but it has a little statistic box up there too, which is kind of cool. And it tells you, you've saved 28 minutes tonight using our program.
Yeah.
Because it records how fast you type.
Right.
So I'm like, that's
right.
cool.
When I first tried it, so in my role at Gallup, I do send a lot of the same, I kind of do a concierge type work with our, we have about 11,000 certified coaches around the world. And I end up repeating myself all the time. I couldn't, my workflow today, or I would say up until just a couple months ago, was I just had actually a text document that I would open up as I was getting ready to process all this information. I would, in their scenario, for me, there's scenarios. Their email is bouncing on us. We are, or it's getting blocked. I get a message back. Hey, and these are customers. We want to get, they want communication from us. They want it.
Sure.
For whatever reason, it's been blocked, or they made a mistake and put it on a, do not, or an unsubscribe or whatever. So I end up saying very, very similar ones. But when I tried TextExpander, that was the problem, is I was like, I am better at like geospatial location of things. Like I can identify a block of text in a whole bunch of text because I know exactly where it's at. And it's easier for me. What I've been doing is highlighting it, right click and paste. And now in Windows, you have a history of your copy and paste. So Windows V, that box pops up and it says, hey, here's the last 10 or 15, whatever it is. Things. Well, to me, that's just like TextExpander, because the variety of things I say isn't enough to need a whole big database of it. It's really about 3 things at any given task that I'm doing. So that was always, for TextExpander, that was always the no-go for me, was I have trouble remembering those key, what I wanted to do, and maybe it does, and maybe I need to check this out, is I need to start typing that sentence. And then it says, oh, I see you're typing this sentence. Do you want to finish it with this? Does it do that? It always, to me, it seemed like I needed to remember some kind of code to make it work.
Yeah, that kind of that predictive text.
Yeah, a little more predictive. But the predictive text today for me, what I get in Windows or what I get in Outlook or what is just one word at a time, or maybe 2. Like I start these sentences the same way every time. It appears to us that your email, okay, well, and then it should finish it by saying is bouncing, and we need a can we get an updated email address from you, something like that. So
Yeah, I would say to my knowledge, they don't have the predictive text,
yeah,
but if you are
yeah,
typing that same thing over and over again, it can do obviously spaces
yeah.
and return.
Well,
So you could program, but yeah.
maybe I need to make the codes just longer and make it what I'm actually typing in. I was finding in the process I wasn't hitting that enough.
Mhm.
For me, it was just easier, to have maybe 7 things that I have long text on. It was just easier to go back to like I really wanted it to work for me.
Right.
It just didn't so I wanted, I tell you what, I may go back now that we're talking about it here. I may go back and give it another run, be like, oh, maybe I didn't, because cross PC, right? I can, I have, there's a browser plugin that you can use with it and pretty much get it working on anything, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't recall seeing it on Android. I don't know if that would
Yeah,
affect you in any way
yeah,
though, but
yeah.
I remember that was the one platform I didn't see advertised. But yeah, for me it was the price was helpful too. They do run a subscription model, and I believe it's $30 or $35 a year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
relatively very cheap. And I've even seen updates even since I've had it for about a month. And that one thing that's kind of nice is they'll give you some pre-built databases that you can download, such as misspelled words, commonly misspelled words, which is helpful. So if you start typing that word, it'll correct it. And
Yeah.
then the one that's kind of cool is brand names. Like
Mm,
if you type in the name Facebook, well, I think it's a lowercase f and a lowercase b, but I'm not sure. Or is it 2 words or 1 word? Is it capital F, lowercase b, and so forth? One of those types of things. So it helps out with
mhm,
brand names too.
mhm.
Yeah.
Where do you find you use it most? In communicating with people, or when you're trying to write longer documents? Where's it helping you the most?
Where I'm initially using it now is mostly when I return feedback on students and their
Mm,
work.
mm,
So it's relatively short, a couple paragraphs. But the one thing that I'm going to start dabbling into is using that feature where you can replace. You have the drop down menus, and that I think will be more of when I'm sending out longer emails, being able to connect with the varying. More the majority of the text is the same, but I want to differentiate it slightly.
yeah, yeah. Well, and yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to give it another. I'm gonna have to give it another run now that you're talking about it, because I want it so badly to work for me, and
Yeah,
like it,
and they do offer a pretty generous trial. I think it's a 30-day
hmm
trial.
hmm
So I just barely started paying
hmm
for it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I got to give it a spin. I think on the phones, the predictive, like it seems like the predictive text or whatever we call that on a phone is even better than it is on the desktop. Like, right? It
Yep.
seems like because that's where people are thumbing it, and that's where so I think, and I don't know about you, but if I have a long response that to an email, it goes back under unopened, and
Yep.
or flag it, whatever. And
Sure.
I'm not going to answer this till I get back to a desktop.
Yep.
I'm not gonna thumb that thing, to make it work. Although TextExpander would, in that case, if I had a long answer that it was going to be standard, that may be a place where TextExpander would work and save the day, and not I don't have to necessarily go back to that email later. That might work. That may
Yeah, I
be a
agree.
place where it saves my bacon.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't think I've barely used TextExpander on my phone, except for I think maybe some autocorrect misspelling type things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I
Can can you with Auto Expander? So if I wanted to put something in, I can go to the database of my things and just pick
mhm.
it from there, can't I? Just say, no, insert this thing, because that's what I'm doing with a flat file, with a text file today. Is I'm just going to it and picking from, oh, okay, that's the one I want, highlight it and bring it in. I imagine I
Yeah.
could do that out of Text Expander.
Yeah, you can open it's an application that sits on the bottom of the tray, the dock in on Mac OS, and then it's also in the menu bar. So I just click on the menu bar, It also has a quick add feature where, let's say you had something on your clipboard, so you press Control Copy, and you paste it in. You can create an instant little snippet real quick using whatever's on your clipboard too. A nice quick add.
Yeah. Yeah. Then this should also be a thing where dictations should be working. Like, in other words, I should just say it, but that's still not for some it is, but for most people, we're not talking to our computers like I thought we would be, where I just say dictate, computer,
Yeah.
dictate, right? And then I would say things. I don't know about you, but when I try to talk to the Amazon lady, I screw up those sentences like I've never talked before.
Oh
right?
yeah. I've got this one. Speaking of Amazon, I've got this one set up because in our bedroom we have the colorful lights, and we usually have it set to like a dark blue or something like that.
Yeah.
That's easier on the eyes when you're trying to go to bed, and then we turn it off. Well, when I get up in the morning and I'm trying to find a particular shirt in the dresser, you open up the dresser and you have a dark blue light shining into the dresser. And I'm trying to figure out what color is this shirt. And so I made a command to change the light bulb to white, but not have to say so many words.
Yeah.
But I always forget. And
yes, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what's the command to to do this? And
they didn't have this problem on the Enterprise.
No, for some reason, when they're talking to the computer, it works flawlessly, and they're doing complex calculations, warp drive calculations, and saving the ship from imploding and some of those kinds of things. I just, I just never seem to get it right. I mean, listen, Brian, I make the same pot of coffee every morning, right? I get my perk out. I wash it out. I put the grounds in, and I tell the A lady, set a coffee timer for 8 minutes and 30 seconds. That's what it's going to take to get it perking. And then depending upon when it goes off, I say add 5 minutes or start a brew timer for 5 minutes, right? It does that. I screw that up 4 out of 5 days, and then I get 2 timers going, and I get, and I'm just like, hey, what is it? It must be me. Like, I just must not be good enough. But
I think it's all of us.
Yeah. I thought we'd be talking, dictation, and it would be doing it and correcting it as it goes and some of those kinds of things. And maybe in some cases it is, but I just don't feel like for most people they're using those features.
Well, and maybe it's the fact I was thinking about when you were talking about dictation. One of the biggest problems is, punctuation, whether it's a comma, period, exclamation, question mark, that type of thing, and then connecting it to the Enterprise. How many times did they set that ship to self-destruct? And it never did. Maybe they thought it was a question. Should I self-destruct? And then set the timer. Is it a 5-minute timer to self-destruct?
I know. And why was it never configurable? Why was it always 1 minute so that they had to rush off the ship?
Yeah.
You would think you would want that one command to be configurable, right?
It's like, okay, but then, now I'm ready to cross into the safe area. 30 seconds, now go. I'm good.
But they knew they would make a mistake because you'd say 1 minute and it, you might cough when you say minute and it thinks you said second. That's it. Right. That's it. You're done. Well, Jim Shoemaker says in chat, he says he's never used TextExpander, but he finds iOS voice to text pretty useful. And I do think this is probably the use case. A lot of people are sending texts and those kinds of things via voice, but these aren't documents. These are I think for most people. Yeah. It's just, this is just communication going back and forth. We're not like you. Would you for a student, would you talk into your phone and just send it to them, or you got to make sure it's right?
Well, I guess as long as it doesn't send yet, and you had a simple reply of saying, yes, that sounds good. Something like that, I would be comfortable. And especially since you still have to read it before you still have to click the little send button.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. But I would, something more formal in that way.
The one of the things with Teams that I've really liked on my watch, on my Apple Watch, is the ability to just, to type back simple. You get a message, yes or no, and
Mhm.
you can scroll through a bunch of pre-made responses, or just hit the text and type it. I underestimated how powerful that writing could be in getting quick messages to people, right? If the message doesn't, if it's not a pre-made message back, typing that in is not difficult at all, and sending it on the watch is pretty handy.
It is. For me, my watch is on my is my personal watch
Yeah.
versus my work stuff, so it
Okay.
doesn't connect with our
Okay.
Teams.
Okay.
But with regards to dictation, I found like the AirPods are great. You can be walking and
Mm,
you just ask for the S lady, and then
yeah.
say text, whoever, and you can dictate something back real quick.
Yeah, I do think that's a skill, by the way, getting through those commands in a way, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. I don't
Mhm.
do it enough, and so I'm still kind of clumsy at it, but I watch my wife do it, and she grabs the phone, says whatever, and then starts talking, and she's adding in punctuation and all kinds of things on the fly. Like, oh, okay.
Wow.
So I think it's
Yeah.
a skill. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just a skill that you get more comfortable with. I thought in the chat room, I thought we'd have more folks listening that have used it, TextExpander, but no. Dave Jackson on Ask the Podcast Coach podcast I do on Saturday mornings.
Mhm.
This is an area he does tech support for Libsyn,
Mhm.
and this is an area he uses a lot of because it's the same kind of deal. That's probably where TextExpander is bread and butter, is in support, right? When you're constantly sending the same. But do you find, I find sometimes people read into that, they get the feeling it's a, have you ever had this
Canned message
happen
type
where
thing.
they're like, did you really type that, or was this is this a cut and paste? I hear this a lot from people complaining about support people. They've called in to get support and they get the standard answer, right? Do you
Yeah.
ever well, you just started using this, but do you ever feel like that could be something people could read into that?
I think there's a time and place for it for sure.
Mm,
When I send out particular grade reports, it's pretty black and white. This is your grade. You're ahead of pace. You're behind pace. It's a pretty standard
mhm.
response. So that part of the email, I think, is appropriate to use for some of those canned
Yeah,
responses.
yeah.
And of course, you want to add a personal connection to it, and build that rapport and relationship, building with your students and their families.
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
aspect I would probably differentiate. But even within an email, I think you can use both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'll try it again. That I need to maybe rethink, like, well, what's my strategy going to be on this? How do I get past the codes? Maybe
Yeah.
finding a different way for me to make that work, because it would be beneficial. I would like Attract. I mean, I use Grammarly, but this
Yeah.
has also got some spell check kind of associated
Mhm.
with it. We get spell check built into stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, okay. Well, yeah, maybe maybe you've talked me back into giving it another try. You're all. Oh, did you want to say one more thing?
Oh, I was just going to say, with a 30-day free trial they give you, I mean,
Yeah.
some places only give you like a week. These guys,
Right.
30 days, it's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
It's enough to, in your workflow, you can include it
I
and really try to see if you like it. Yeah.
I felt it was real generous. The last when I tried it, I
Yeah.
think I did it on the trial, and I felt like it was a generous, a month to give it a try. Again, it just didn't really, for me. I was just like, oh man, this is kind of a little more work. Now today. I do a little more of that constant communication that's similar, right?
Right.
Where I'm trying to find, tell them, hey, your email address is bouncing, or we're having
Sure.
trouble communicating with you. So maybe I'll give that a try. You're trying another tool, Classroom Screen, at classroomscreen.com. I'm going to
Oh,
bring
yes.
this up. Talk to me a little bit about that. How are you using that, and what is this?
Sure. So it's a website. You go to classroomscreen.com, and you can use a perfectly easy version. You don't have to necessarily log in and do anything like that. They also have a paid version, which I've gone ahead and adopted. But basically, as we got into the environment of going back into the classroom and working with our students, I use this on my whiteboard. It's one of those LCD touchscreen boards, and I put this up here, and I pretty much have it up there the whole day. And it's a digital tool with interactive web applications within it. And what I've found is, you know, every period after taking attendance, I walk up, in back of class, and I let the students know, okay, let's go over the agenda for the day, and some of the widgets that I like putting up there. I choose a custom background that's appropriate to, maybe there's a holiday this week, so I had a lot of, patriotic, stuff for Veterans Day leading up to today. Leading into Halloween, we had some more Halloween themed type backgrounds that I chose. And so you put those up there on the board, and then you start putting up these little widgets. I like using the clock. It's a digital clock and an analog clock. It's obviously good to just know always what time it is when the kids, there's one on the little computer screens they have, but that's helpful. I put a little calendar up there. It's always a nice reference tool to have a calendar. I then use the text box, and the text box allows you to use, make things bold, italicize, underline, different sizes. So, a lot of different ways to display your text. I put up there if there's anything special going on with the schedule that day, like an early release schedule or anything, particular event happening at school, things like reminder type things. And I like to use like some sort of like a quote that connects with the kids, something sometimes thematic, usually something, try to get them with growth mindset type ideas, making good choices, those types of things. And then I throw a little joke of the day up there, always these dumb dad jokes that I put up there, and the kids groan. And I know that, and I always tease them. I said, when you guys finish my class, you guys are going to be really sad. You don't get to hear my jokes anymore. But
no, they're going to start saying them. That's what happens, right? It just, my daughter found a meme of like, 20 things dad says, and I say 19 of them. I mean, I was like, yeah. So we were leaving the restaurant. We went out for dinner tonight. As we were leaving, I grabbed my keys, and I'm like, not going to get very far without these things. That's one of the things dad says, right? And she almost fell on the floor laughing. She thought it was so funny. So the whiteboard that you have digital, what's running, what runs that whiteboard? Is it its own OS, or is it running on Windows, or how does that work?
I believe it's running off of Windows. It's connected to our computers. It's I don't know the model number. It's an Epson short throw something or other. You can interact and touch it. In my workflow, I tend not to use that feature as much as I probably should.
For you, it's just a big display. In other words,
for me, it's a big display.
So, but then you can. This is web based, so you jump into it, and then you take these widgets. Whatever. I love this idea. There's a sound level widget in there.
The kids love it. It's so cool because it measures your decibels from your microphone on your laptop.
Yeah.
And I started out using it, and I didn't tell the kids what that decibel meter was. They just saw like this little thing, and they kind of figured it out. Hey, when we're talking, and they should be, the talking should be kept to a minimum. But if they were talking kind of loudly, that decibel meter was like going into yellow and red, and they figure it out. It's kind of cool.
Kind of a nice reminder, like, hey, you guys can, if I was teaching, and maybe you do this too, I'd be like, okay, this is a talking time, but it needs to stay below this. And so it really gives them kind of a standard, right? So they kind of, guys, and they probably police themselves maybe a little bit on that.
Self-regulate. Exactly. Yeah. It's a good, trait to take with you even after leaving high school, obviously.
Yeah.
One thing that was kind of cool there, I use a widget for the QR code generator. And, a lot of our kids, they love using their phones anyways. So I said, they're going to have their phones. Let's have them interact with their phones in a responsible way. And so I put up this QR generator, and you put in a website, and like I said previously, we use a lot of Microsoft products, and one of them is the forms that they use, Google Microsoft Forms, where you create like poll questions. And so I create, I do like little poll questions, just touching base with the kids. I get to know them. I'll ask them, sometimes they're more based academically, are you planning on coming to Saturday school this week? Yes or no? Those types of things. or sometimes just to get to know my kids or what they're interested in. So I'll throw up there something like, what streaming services do you use? Check all the boxes, and that type of thing. Something that's low key, friendly, and just builds that classroom rapport with the kids. And I love using that feature. That's something really neat. But I'll tell you my number one favorite feature, and it's the only reason why I paid for it, because everything else it's all free. They have a couple premium widgets, I guess, but the only one that I really care about is the fact that you can save your screens. So I'll make them for the week. I'll try to get a week ahead in the screens that I'm making, and then I can of course tweak them if something, schedule change type things, of course, but I can keep that skeleton of what I built. And there was nothing worse than when we had to do, I built a screen. It doesn't take forever to build, but you place everything where you want it, and moving it from my computer screen onto that whiteboard. The whiteboard has a different resolution, and so I'd have to rearrange all the widgets. And so it takes a little bit of work, not horrible, but a little bit of work. And then what do you know? In the middle of the day, my computer would freeze. And the only way to make it unfreeze would be either the Control-Alt-Delete or just a hard shutdown and restart. And if you can't save your screen, you're going back to the beginning and recreating it from scratch.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of, I used to do some copy and pasting. I'd have the text box ready in a Word document. So I'd pull up the Word document, copy and paste that into a text box. But then, you're doing stuff on the fly when you're doing something a lot more productive. So
right. You can save it, set it, come back to it. There's even more widgets than we were looking at. We were looking at those 9 widgets on the screen. There's a dice widget. My kids are into D&D, and now it doesn't look like it supports 20-sided die, but which they're using all the time for that. But you get some. You can go in the. Do you ever roll dice in the classroom to kind of decide things?
Yeah, so sometimes we'll have that. There's a random name generator. You'll notice a little gearbox in the corner. If you click on the gearbox, you might actually have some more functions on there. So sometimes, if you click on the dice widget, you'll notice a little gearbox.
The gearbox on the dice. Sorry, there we go. Yep.
Oh, that's okay. So this one doesn't have an option, but you'll notice the background color. You can change its HTML. So they give you about 12 or 14 colors. But if I open up a second window and I open up HTML code for different colors, and I'll try to blend it. Like if I were you, like personally, what I would be doing right now is finding the HTML code for something that's like a orangish color to blend with the background.
There you go.
And just kind of make it visually nice for the kids.
Well, that is, and then you can kind of go with the seasons. You could. Yep. Do you ever let them pick like what gets displayed on this?
I do actually. One of the things that I've been putting up as one of my text items is, and again, they'll answer through Teams, is I'll say to the kids, I said, if you have any suggestions of a quote or a background image or a joke that you heard, something that's classroom appropriate that you would like to just, have displayed, I said, just message me in the text box, and then also let me know if you want me to credit your name to it, and then it's kind of nice. Some of the kids want the recognition. Some kids don't, and some kids are indifferent towards it. But there's so many cool tools. We'll go we have our breaks between our class periods. So like what you just pulled up there, the widget for a countdown timer, it makes a little dinging sound so they can know when to come back into class and the next class period has started. And
I guess what I love about this is it's just drop dead simple. Like I've never seen this before. And immediately I was able to be like, oh, I could bring that. Yeah. We could do that. We could get this done. I brought the traffic light in, which in the instructions, they say, like this could mean now is not a great time to come ask for help, right? Yep. It's a red light. Or you could change that maybe to green, right? And say, yep, okay, I'm available for now. And the students can look up on the screen and see if they can get up to, I was thinking, maybe I'd put a big screen outside my studio here, and I would just, hey, you can come bother me, because they during the day, if they want to bother me, they come around and whisper, "Are you on a call?" kind of thing. I get that. I'm like, I'm okay. We got to come up with these, and it doesn't happen very often, but kind of cool to be able to set this, to say, yeah, you can come see me, or now it's not a good time, or whatever. Do you use the stoplight feature for anything else?
I don't use the stoplight personally, but
Okay.
you got me thinking when you were mentioning, using it outside your studio. I think, I mean, there's some tools that are more appropriate to a classroom, as the name of the,
Right. Right.
website indicates. But I could see a lot of businesses, in an office environment, utilizing a tool like this, in certain aspects. I think some of them are more appropriate than others, but if you're doing a in-person professional development and you're doing something collaborative and wanted to have something up on the screen, and you can open up more than one copy of most of them. I think, like, I know you can open up multiple text boxes, multiple
Mm-hmm.
timers, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
different things that you can have going on simultaneously for different things.
Hide. You can
Random,
hide.
yeah. Yep, you can hide, so you get more screen real estate. They have a random number or random name generator, so you
Mm-hmm.
can. And it says name, but you could put in other things too. If you number, or you could be numbers, of course. It could be
Sure.
items. Something along that line. You
Sure.
could some sort of a bingo game or something.
Yeah,
But
that's super cool.
yeah, yeah,
This is
I
super
learned
cool.
about this at a PD. Yeah.
Classroomscreen.com if you want to check this out. I know we have quite a few educators that listen here, but I'm kind of thinking of like what else? Like, as I see this, I'm like, this is kind of a cool little, if I had a kitchen PC that
Hmm.
I could, there's things, I could kind of set the timers that way. I use Hey Lady for that, but you're kind of like, this is pretty handy. I like
Yeah,
this. Yeah, I'll have to.
it was created by a teacher themselves, actually, who created it. So yeah.
And I think the
That,
pricing on it is not. Let's see if I can go back to
it's a
that.
I
It's
think it's
not
about
terrible, right?
30 a year or free. Yeah,
Oh,
so depending on what features you need, completely free or 30 a year.
yeah, that's super reasonable.
Yeah.
This is a cool screen. I was just going through this. Let me reshare this. So sorry we're so visual if you're listening to the audio on this. But there's this cool one right here. And you got a moon, it's kind of a blue sky with the moon behind it. And I'm assuming they have, if I just keep clicking the back button, it seemed like it was creating new ones for me just automatically. So as I'm
Yeah.
clicking, it's just kind of going back through and making new ones. That's
Yeah. If
kind of
you
cool.
click on the background, you'll see all the options they have. And so in the free model, you only get options of what they have. So on the widget, on the bottom where it says background,
On
the
the
first one on the far
bottom,
left.
first one. Oh, there we go.
And then
Oh,
so
I
those are
see.
the options. Yeah. So they have
Got
some
it.
movable ones too, some
Yeah.
animation ones, like a flowing river and stuff. So they're kind of cool. But again, those are ones that you have.
Yeah.
You can also include a webcam, so you can have a background being a webcam.
That'd be a great idea.
Yeah, so there's a lot of neat things. And then if you have the pay version, you can incorporate your own backgrounds.
Yeah.
So we did something with the flag raisers, Iwo Jima, and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big movement, a big calming movement going on at the moment of meditation apps and visual images that are calming. We used to, in the enterprise space, people would have a little Zen garden on their desk, with a little rake and some sand. Well, there's now a whole kind of industry around images and particularly, short video or video clips or whatever that repeat this in these calming. You kind of wonder in this space with generally it can be kind of an anxious environment for people having this playing in the background. Have you experimented at all with any of those calming kinds of backgrounds?
A couple of them actually. I think of
Mm,
especially in we were talking about weather earlier in the Phoenix area, how hot it's been, and
mm,
we'll get our rainy season ish during our monsoon season, but there'll be a long periods of time where we don't have any rain. And what is this strange water falling from the sky? And so, like, I sometimes will put just calming thunderstorm
mm,
music on and have
mhm.
that just on repeat. And it's just thunderstorms, and it's kind of calming. And then in our version of cold is like 40 degrees in the our low.
Right,
That's
right
our
on.
cold. and our kids get all super cold. And so what I'll do is I'll put the big fireplace, like the repeating 7-hour fireplace on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put that on in the background once in a while and go up to the whiteboard and kind of, go with my hands up to the whiteboard like I'm warming myself.
Get a
So something
fire,
like that.
get a fire going. I've done that before. Put a fire on a monitor, just to kind of feel the way. Have you ever tried to sleep with any of those sounds yourself, where you've put rain or thunderstorms or any of those wind? Have you ever tried using that?
No, but I don't think I could sleep in complete silence either. So I would say neither. I love falling asleep to, like, on my A-Lady, I'll set sports talk radio, and I'll fall asleep to ESPN radio.
Really, words. I can't do that. That engages my brain too much.
Okay.
But, I like the actual sound when we get a windstorm and it's pushing against the house and you can hear the house kind of creak, under the pressure. I like that. Like, I don't know why, or especially in the winter, if we're getting a winter storm and it's snow and it's blowing and you can hear it howling and you hear the snow hitting the side of the house. It shouldn't be, but there's something super relaxing to me about. I love, in fact, sometimes if that's happening early, I'll just go to bed early. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go out there because I want to hear that sound. I sleep against a southern facing wall, and so sometimes, especially in the summer, I hear the rain hitting the side of the house, which is very relaxing and very calming to me. We don't get enough of it, but so I need that. I can't. Words would keep me awake too long.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
I can't do music though. That's the difference in me though. If it's musical tune, I couldn't fall asleep to that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny just how we're all different with that. Jim in the chat says move to Oklahoma and you get tornadoes. I'm not necessarily sure. Yeah, that's a little too much for me, but I have tried. If you tell the A-Lady, and you can do this on the Google devices as well. I've said play rain sounds or play wind sounds. The rain sounds like cooking bacon. Doesn't sound like rain. Like, on the phone, the speaker's not good enough. And I think what I actually need is a really good, if I'm going to do that, I need a really good set of speakers to get that bass. Because what you're listening for is the sound of that water hitting something and that bass sound. So I don't know. I've never really been able to get my phone to work for those, or even the devices are too small. Those speakers, they're too high. The frequencies are too high. I think you need a better sound device. Yeah,
I agree. It's maybe a little too tinny.
Yeah. But I'd like to figure that out. I think I'd like to do that more. I didn't even realize I was reading the comments on one of those sleep apps, and they're like, "Yeah, it sounds like sizzling bacon." And I was like, no wonder I wake up so hungry.
It's like that mnemonic just telling you over and over again.
Yeah.
Eat bacon.
Oh yeah. It is that, and that's just torture. That's just torture. Anything else on that screen technology that you've been, in a way you've been using that may have surprised you?
I don't know, but the thing that surprised me is my colleagues have jumped on board of it too. And it's interesting walking through their classrooms, and everyone uses it in their own way. What's appropriate and works for me and my workflow and workflow with the kids may be different from them. They have for the ones who use the freemium model, the free version, and I think it allows you to do a poll. And I said, okay, that's kind of cool, because then I'll use the poll too. But I started using the Microsoft Forms and then incorporating it with the QR code. And what I found is that's better for me, because because I have the pay version, I can make multiple screens and save them. And for that function, I don't know if it's a bug or just, the sophistication of the software, but you can only do one screen, I think, one poll at a time. So if I make a new poll, it replaces the one that I previously made. And so if I'm working days ahead and building multiple screens, that's one of the goofy things about it, I guess. Yeah.
So we're displaying, that's homegadgetgeeks.com in a QR code. If you want to come out and click on that, you can do that. In fact, maybe we can get a few of our live folks. It'd be interesting here. I'll I'll try it with my phone just while we're doing it. Because this is, when I was out recruiting a lot, this was one of the things that was kind of harder to do, was to, there we go, homegadgetgeeks.com, click on it. It'll take me right there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
QR codes have been around forever. Hold on. Why is it not going? Maybe I spelled it wrong. No, interesting. It's not. It says Safari can't open the page. Interesting. Did I make that secure? HTTPS. Yeah, homegadgetgeeks.com. Interesting. Chat room, let me know. To pull your phones out and take a snapshot of that. Tell me if that resolves back to the pod page. I guess maybe we could also try. And you could do this on the fly, right? So if I don't like that, I could come here and put the average guy.tv. And then we'll do this to that in theory. Let's just try that again, see if that works. Chat room, play along with us if you can, or if you're on YouTube and you want to give this a try. Let's see how this goes. Do you find oh yeah, that works out pretty nice. Do you find that's got to be handy in your teaching? They have their phones, you're letting them do that. My kids, 10 years ago, they couldn't even pull their phones out, they'd get them taken away. Are you using their phones as part of the learning experience then in that way?
I think we have a ways to go, but I'm just trying to show them appropriate ways to use their technology that they have in their hands. We have a program, a curriculum that works already on the laptops, one-to-one laptops. So they're already having that in front of them. But, I just want them to figure out ways to use their technology in a responsible way. Yeah.
This would be handy. I think that, again, this would be handy, especially on the fly. You saw how fast I made this. So then I don't have to open another program. I can just grab the QR code, put the link in, or copy and paste the link in and say, go here, or save this here, or however you guys, however it works for you, could be kind of handy. For me, when I was recruiting, when I was doing, software development recruiting, I like to take a big monitor with me, and we would put things on it. In those days, just a couple of years ago, to be honest, I couldn't get students to use QR codes. All of a sudden it's caught on again. And it's like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like, it's funny to hear the kids, because they think this is new. And I'm like, oh, sorry. Like, it's been around a while, but you're just using it. It's just gone back and forth on QR. It's so weird how sometimes it's worked and other times it hasn't. And it seems to be working now. Would you say that students are pretty good about using QR codes if you put it up there?
Yeah, it's pretty. I would say probably about half my kids like using it, and then the other half, what I'll do is I'll copy the URL and I'll put it into the chat for Teams, and then they'll click on that, answer it from the PC that they're already using. Oh. So some prefer still to do it that way, and that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Brian, anything else? We're bumping against the end here, but as you've listened to the show for a long time, anything else you want to add before we go?
Not without breaking into brand new topics. So no, I think yeah.
What? Let me ask you this question. You're a Patreon supporter, and thank you for doing that. Sure. I appreciate that. I reached out a couple months ago to all the Patreon supporters and said, "Hey, you want to be on the show?" And you said yes. It's actually been a blast. Like, I have really enjoyed getting to know. Oh, my timer just went off. I don't know if it was really loud. I don't know if you heard that. Did you hear it come through the microphone? The timer? Yeah. So I should probably close this so it doesn't do it again. That was really loud. I wonder if it played. No, it would have had to come through. It would have had to come out of here. Was it faint when you heard the ring?
It was just a little ding.
Yeah.
I heard it, but it wasn't like super loud. Yeah.
I've really enjoyed getting to know, like, I don't know if I would have done this if I hadn't opened it up to you guys, to say, hey, do you want to be on, just to kind of talk? So it's been a blast for me. So thank you for doing it. I haven't asked anybody this to date, but I'm going to ask you, what would you love to see us do in the future? Like, you keep listening. I should ask why. Maybe I don't want to know the answer why, but how could we keep, what would you like to see us do here on Home Gadget Geeks that would be interesting to you, do you think?
Well, I think one of the things, and this would open up a whole huge topic, was what you guys really inspired me to be able to continue to grow in home automation type things and give me confidence that I didn't have otherwise, and that's been a blessing. And I would say one big thing that I think helps is just keeping in the back of the mind of that a lot of that we've got a lot of return listeners, a lot of people who are watching, but we also have, I'm sure, a lot of folks who are picking up that hadn't listened before. And I think being cognizant of being able to bring everyone along for the ride. And I think, as you guys do a great job of that already, and just continuing that and bringing on when I think of things like problem solution, what's a problem we're facing in our lives and how do we solve it? Yeah. And if when it intersects with technology, that's the idea with the show. Yeah.
Well, it really becomes like the conversations that we have at the meetups, when we get together in person, it's not everybody talking at once, but it's one person and me asking questions. And then we take questions or ideas from the chat room and bring them in. It's just curated form of it that we do, but we try to keep it. Never wanted to be a review show. I've tried. I'm terrible at it. I hate doing reviews. There's plenty of people that do that so much better than I do. But the community aspect of it, right? Just conversations, I think, is what I think what most people listen to it for. Otherwise, they would have stopped listening to it, because it's pretty much 100% conversations.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, thanks, Brian. Thanks for coming on again. Appreciate doing it. Thanks for listening. It's just, you do this stuff all the time. I'm actually still surprised. There's, Saturdays when I'm posting this thing, and I've gotten a pretty regular schedule now of getting this posted somewhere between noon and 1 on Saturdays. That happens because I'm listening to Cigar Authority while I'm editing this thing, and it almost always works where somewhere between noon and 1 Central, I publish it. I want to get it done as soon as Cigars Authority over. I got to go mow the lawn, or I got to go get my chores done, or those kinds of things. So I try to get it. Done. So it's gotten done on a really regular schedule. But thanks for listening, and thanks for hanging around and coming in the chat room. It's a ton of fun. Big thanks to everybody who came out into the chat room tonight. Is it weird being on this side of it as opposed to being in the chat room?
It is, but you have the type of personality that just makes you feel like you're welcomed, and even the listeners in the chat, it's part of the show. You're just part of the group. And that not everyone does that. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I really enjoy it. There's some Thursdays I'm like, do I keep going? Yeah, let's do it again. Let's do it again. I would be negligent if I didn't ask you this question though on the way out. Crypto, have you gotten into it? Have we gotten you into crypto, or are you avoiding it?
I wouldn't say necessarily that I'm avoiding it, but it has not been something that I've gotten into. Yeah, it's just something that I just haven't.
Good
haven't
call.
Done.
It's complicated.
I have nothing necessarily against it. Yeah. Just haven't.
Yeah. My daughter, Sammy will be on next Friday. The Thanksgiving Friday here in the US. She thinks crypto is the evilest thing ever. Like,
well, I hear like the conversations about what was the big issue that was something that got Bitcoin specifically, I think, wasn't it? That was real. That got a lot of people upset.
Right now, I mean, one, it supports the dark web, right? I mean, let's just be really clear. It's the financial system for the dark web, and then two, I mean, it is not efficient at all. I mean, especially Bitcoin, like it's created on gigantic. It takes a gigantic amount of energy to create.
That must be what it was.
Yeah. And you kind of go, is this responsible? I'm not sure that they ever thought about this when they were developing it the first time. Oh geez, like this is going to take, like people are going to go crazy. I think they were just happy a few people did it, right? This is going to take an enormous amount of energy to get, and now, I mean, I think Bitcoin mining represents more power usage than a couple of European countries put together or something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So she hates it. Like I
think one of the frustrating things would be, with the chip shortages and the folks buying up, what is it, like GPUs and stuff for this type of thing.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it keeps it out of the hands of other folks who might
Yeah.
want to use it for other purposes. So
Yeah.
I can see that aspect. Sure.
Yeah. It's definitely supply and demand, and it's created some crazy demand for some of those things. And you just kind of go, and I always remind her, I'm into hard drive mining now. That's what I do. More efficient. It's, gentler on the environment. Yeah, Dad, but they still got to make them. So, you're like, you don't really need all that storage. Well, yeah, no, I don't. But okay, so we'll just agree to disagree. So she's coming on in a couple weeks, and I'm sure I'll have to. We've never really talked about it, but I will probably breach the crypto conversation with her on that Friday. She's gotten a little more opinionated over the last couple years, so I think she'll probably let me have it. If you've listened to the show with Sammy, she can let me have it. So, and I like it. So it's all good. So, Brian, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it. And hang tight with me here for 1 sec. We'll do a little bit of a post show. Couple reminders: the Home Gadget Geeks, of course, in the AverageGuy.tv, really powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. And of course, Christian. I need to call him. I haven't done that in a while. I need to talk to him. Head out to maplegrovepartners.com and plans start. No inflation. I mean, we had record inflation in the United States in October, but no inflation going on at Maple Grove Partners. $10 plans get you what you need, and you can set that up and get that rolling today. And of course, Christian will get you going for it. maplegrovepartners.com. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers, and Brian's one of those as well. And listen, if you're listening to this and I sent you an email inviting you on, and maybe you missed it, just contact me. Let me know. If you're thinking, if you'd like to jump on the show, I'd love to have you on as a Patreon subscriber. So let me know, Jim at theaverageguy.tv. You can always send me your feedback on the show and the things we're doing and show ideas and some of those kinds of things. We got some really great guests coming up. Jay Madison is coming back. I mentioned Sammy is coming back. I'm getting Marv to come back. So we've got some folks coming up. We'll get Aaron lined up as well. And we got some great guests coming on both here through December. And then I'm starting to book for January. So we'd like to see you in here if this is something. And if you got something to say, let me know. We'll see if we can get you in and get it done. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, almost every Thursday. We're not to Thanksgiving yet, right? We have 2 weeks here in the United States of Thanksgiving. So not next week. Next week is just Mike and I think. Then Thanksgiving, no Thursday show, I want to say the 25th. And then 26th, Sammy and I are here 8 o'clock that Friday. She's going to blast me. She's gotten a little mouthy. So she's probably going to blast me. I shouldn't say a little mouthy. She's gotten really mouthy. And she'll be here. I think we're going to have a good time together. We'd love to have you come out for that Friday live show. You'll have recovered from your Thanksgiving, here in the U.S. anyways, your Thanksgiving coma. Come and join us on Friday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. If you're joining us live, stay around for a smidge of a post show. With that, we'll say goodbye.